So that brings us now, we've talked about einkorn, we've talked about sprouting, we've talked about sourdough, and we're going to take a step back now and talk a little bit about farming just briefly. One of the interesting challenges of modern farming is increasing yield. Part of the way we increase yield is by getting plants to grow closer together, to grow to the same height so that they can be harvested with a single swipe of a blade. And all of that is done by altering the genes of the product and basically cloning the seed. So rather than having a diverse family of wheat in a field, it is actually just single clones of each other grown very close together, and under the same conditions, clones will grow to the same height. The problem with that is they're also susceptible to the same diseases, and we're seeing that with something called wheat leaf rust, which is spreading globally and challenging wheat populations. And we've seen it very dramatically in the case of bananas. So, a bit of a story time here. Prior to 1950, 1960, the most popular banana in the world was the Gros Michel. That was the type of banana. It was yellow, like our modern bananas that we're all familiar with, but it had a completely different taste. And in fact, if your parents tell you that bananas tasted different when they were younger, yes, they did. And the reason is that a fungus that the Gros Michel was particularly susceptible to spread throughout all the plantations internationally and basically destroyed this crop entirely. And because they were all clones of each other, they had the same immune systems, the same genetics, they basically all died. And so Dole and Chiquita and I think a couple of other of the big companies got together and said, we need a banana that looks like the Gros Michel. It needs to be yellow, can't be green or red. And it needs to survive well in transit so that it arrives unbruised. And so the Cavendish banana was selected as the replacement, and that is the modern variant that we all think of when we think of a bright yellow banana. But it is notably different in taste than the Gros Michel. And we're seeing the same thing replicate with wheat as a product of modern farming methods, which are clone-based monocultures. And in general, nature produces genetic variation. All of us are different from each other rather than being clones, and that's the way nature protects us as a species from disease, from events that are unforeseen, by having variation in the genetics, variation in the immune populations. There's evidence that modern Homo sapiens, even though they were weaker and not significantly more intelligent than Neanderthals, actually outcompeted Neanderthals, and the reason Neanderthals went extinct is because Homo sapien immune systems were better, and we were better able to tolerate disease, to carry disease with us and infect those populations and kill them off. And so again, the variation, the exposure to disease, the response to immune challenges was protective for the species. If unfortunately we just make 1 million or 1 billion clones of me, then anything that my genetics is susceptible to would wipe out the human race. And that's a very fragile place to be, but that's exactly what we're doing with our farming methods. And occasionally, when we're not able to prevent it, we end up paying the price. And the same thing is true of pest control. Part of the reasons we have to cover our modern farms with pest control, antibacterials, antifungals, is because by selection pressure, the fungi and bacteria know that this entire field is susceptible to me and will try to infect it. And so we keep fighting back with artificial chemicals to protect the field. Whereas einkorn in particular is resistant to wheat leaf rust. It's been around long enough that maybe some other similar fungus tried to infect it, and those versions of einkorn all died, and the ones that survived have a built-in immunity to that fungus. And again, that's going back to the Lindy point that the older surviving genes are often the more robust or the more anti-fragile ones.